Hello all, and welcome. My name's Anthony on behalf of FP Markets. I thank you for attending my and watching my midweek brief. The idea is just to bring you up to speed with news, what is going on in the world in a nutshell, but kind of to the point. There's a lot of theories that are going on, especially nowadays. So as traders, you want to try and get to the roots of each issue. Before we start, you're all entitled to this. It's the Traders Hub. It's free. It's for all account holders. You've got everything you need in one place. You've got news articles, fundamental analysis, videos, technical analysis. Everything you need is here and it's all for free. Fantastic. So please go ahead and use it. Now let's jump ahead with the news this week. The first thing I'll touch on briefly, I know there was some big news, but I like to just quickly update people on election. Don't forget, 2024 is the biggest election year in human history. There are more humans eligible, I say eligible, who are actually eligible to vote than any other year combined. I believe it's over 4 billion people. Now, whether 4 billion people around the world actually vote is a whole new subject. The first thing, United States, this hush money trial. Long story short, Donald Trump is resting his case. He's not even going to stand on testimony to the witness trial. He's very confident in his defense. So they've now submitted their defense and are now going to rest. He did say something that was interesting towards the end of last week, which was he believes he should be out there campaigning rather than in a courtroom, which is one of the reasons he's gaining a lot of support, it seems. Um, but then he also said, but the Democrats are doing a job for him, which is something I've touched on before. The more they try to martyr him and send him to prison, the more support he's getting, and he doesn't even have to campaign. He has turned around Massachusetts by a few points. He's now gained that territory. He's not even campaigned there yet. So imagine what it's like if he starts campaigning. And I don't want this to sound like I'm pro-Trump. I'm on the fence. You have to be in my position, but it's very clear who's winning this race at the moment. So there's your election update. Obviously, we have until November, but it will be interesting to see how these stories unfold. Now let's jump ahead to quickly a Ukraine update. Now, the reason I wanted to touch on the Ukraine update is quite simply because Russia have started to conduct nuclear drills not far from this region here. We're seeing a lot more fighting across the northern Ukrainian border. It seems that Putin has claimed that he wants to create a buffer zone of around 150 kilometers. That would be this grey area here, but a bit more solid. The reason being is Ukraine is literally weeks away from receiving more ammunition and more missiles that have longer range. Putin does not want more attacks within Russian territory. It's not good, especially as he's just become president again for like the 1 millionth time. Obviously, purely fair election, of course. So he's trying to create a buffer zone to limit attacks within Russia. Some were claiming that he actually wanted to go for the Kharkiv region, but I don't think he's necessarily got the forces to be able to take it over, set siege to it, and hold it. People forget that holding it is the hardest part. It's not just taking it over. But it is drawing Ukrainian troops from the south and the east towards the Kharkiv region, which means Russia is starting to gain territory in these parts and also are starting to renew attacks on Odessa and Kherson down in the south. This was quiet since last year. So things are escalating. They have done some tactical nuclear drills. I would not be too concerned about this. Yes, these things can affect gold and can create a bit of fear, but if you're someone that watches the news, NATO have done this, Britain, America, Canada, all these countries have done nuclear drills over recent years or recent decades. This is nothing new. This is just saber rattling. One, this is from Russia just to remind people, hey, we got big guns and we are not afraid to use them. That's fine. You don't need to remind the everyday Joe like ourselves. But this is what he's doing. But this is also scaremongering from the West, from NATO countries to point their finger and say, hey, look, Putin's bad. He's doing nuclear drills. Yeah, but we've done them as well over past decades. But he's the bad one. That's pretty much what this seems to be at the moment. If we move over to the Iran situation, yes, the president of Iran was killed in a helicopter crash. At first, when it was reported, it was said a hard landing. and then it was reported as a crash, and they couldn't find them. A few ministers and his head of security have died in the crash as well. There's a lot of theories going on around this one, and that's all they are at the moment is theories. There's no evidence to suggest otherwise. I've heard people say it was America behind it. I've heard people say Israel behind it. I've heard even people say that the Kurdish rebels from Kurdistan were behind it because of Iran's recent close ties with Turkey. And obviously, the Kurds are technically at war with Turkey for quite a few years now. There's many possibilities. Some are saying it was actually internal because they're trying to push for new fair elections. However, all of these are just theories. Some of them make sense, some of them don't make sense. It could be Israel. We know that there was no response from Israel after the missile strike that they had received from Iran. It could be them, and it would be a totally sensible, with respect, but a sensible target to go for from a military perspective to take out several leaders with no civilian, um, collateral damage in that sense. But like I said, it could be someone internal, political parties trying to take them out. There's many questions raised. The reason these theories are existing is because one of the things that Iran said is they're not sure if there was this alarm device that should have been on there in case anything happens. It's a bit like a black box. It submits a frequency code out and gets picked upon by emergency services to find them quicker. But apparently it was either turned off or they're not sure that this one had it. He's the president of your country, a country with a population of over 80 million people. I'm sure that I know they are receiving sanctions from the West to get parts for their military and aircraft, but still, I'm sure that it had this feature on, which then tells me that if it was not switched on, it means there was no notice and something happens quick. Now, whatever that may be, it could have been a strong gust of wind. It could have been some natural freakish, the moment. It could have been an espionage. It could have been a bomb. Who knows? It's just theories at the moment. What we do know is that they are now in the middle of a 5-day period of mourning. There are Iranians who are also celebrating this event because this goes back to the 70s and 80s when hundreds of thousands of Iranians, if not millions, fled the country because of the new Sharia law that came in with the Supreme Ayatollah. Another reason that people don't always necessarily believe that anyone else is behind this is because the real target in terms of unhappiness in Iran and its foreign affairs is the supreme leader, the Ayatollah. The president has power, but not to that degree. So if anyone is expecting the foreign policies of Iran to change, they're not. The outlook, its relations are still going to be the same as they were. They have got 50 days that they can hold an election. It'll be interesting to see who they elect. Perhaps they will get someone in who's a bit more Western aligned, but it's too early to tell for now. If we go to the Israel situation, the main developments in Israel and Gaza situation is Rafah is under full um, control, basically, from IDF forces. They have found 50 tunnels, allegedly, under the Egyptian cross, under the Rafah border. This is a very interesting part. A lot of eyes are talking about Netanyahu, but Israel has said for many years now that they believed Egypt was working directly with Hamas. Egypt have denied that, and so on and so on. But if they've proven that there's 50 tunnels underneath connecting with Egypt, that means Hamas were going backward and forwards, they were supplying whatever it may be, then it only backs Israel's claims. That being said, the ICC have come out and said that they are looking to charge. Let's not get this wrong. He's not been convicted. They want to arrest him so he can be charged and found innocent or guilty by the ICC, the International Criminal Courts. Now, do not misunderstand this. These are the same people that are looking for Putin and they're looking for certain leaders around the world. They don't hold much jurisdiction. They're not a police force. They're just a court. They advise prosecution services. They work with jurisdictory bodies, authorities like the FBI, Interpol, but they don't have the say. If that was the case, then all of this time Putin flying around Asia, China, the time he went to South Africa, then we would have Interpol, FBI, or even military police waiting for him. They don't because the ICC does not have the ability to tell and enforce their decisions. All they can do is notify countries that he has been put on a wanted list, but then it's down to that country. If it's a country, let's say in this sense Israel, but if there's a country that's considered one of its close allies like America, and Netanyahu flies to America, you think America are going to give him up to the ICC, somebody that has no major authority over them? Probably not. That being said, I'm not personally saying that he should or shouldn't be arrested. That's not the point of the conversation here. It's to say that as much as a big headline this seems, I don't think it's really going to achieve the result they're hoping. If anything, what it has done is split the West with the East even more, because we've seen a lot of Western countries like France, Britain, America come out and say that they are still supporting Netanyahu and Israel in this situation. They're still going to supply arms or whatever logistic deals they've made. So this is just reaffirming those lines in the sand that have been created. What has been affected, the two main commodities in the area, has been oil. Brent has gained because the oil out of the Middle East has obviously fallen, production, with all the tensions in the region, and now with the president of Iran, it might not be a bad thing for Iran long term if they can get a president in who's more friendly with its neighbors, such as Saudi Arabia, and strikes up some trade deals. That would be very interesting. But they don't have good relations at the moment, and Iran have been fighting a small proxy war with Saudi Arabia and its oil fields anyway. So this is a case of watch and see. We did see that gold reached the highest that we've ever seen it during the day that the president of Iran died. What this tells me is the most important thing I've been looking from a fundamental point over the past few years is that people are starting to react to news now. When they see a headline, they trade with it. So that's a good thing, although it doesn't mean we're getting the most accurate feeling, because the death of the president of Iran is not necessarily the thing that might trigger a global conflict, because you look at gold at this price, you expect that sort of news. But what it does tell me is people are sat there with their finger on a trigger, theoretically speaking, which is a good thing to see. It means more people are going to trade events. So when you're sat at home and you're watching things like this or breaking news happens, then other people are likely to be doing the same. If we look at economic events coming up for the rest of the week, the most important ones to keep an eye on are the US dollar. The British pound today had some economic data out, and we've got the euro on Friday, GDP out of Germany. We've got home sales coming out, and we've got PPI is also coming out of Russia. That would be interesting. Although not many people trade the ruble, it's still interesting to keep an eye on this, because things like PPI is very high, expected to go down slightly, but because of sanctions upon them. FOMC meetings minutes will be interesting. Perhaps we might get an indication to future rate cuts. It's not happened yet. These are the types of things that we look for to give us little hints or clues. We've got retail sales, and like I said, we've got more retail sales coming out of Europe, out of Poland there. Initial jobless claims tomorrow and new home sales. New home sales seems to be dropping, which is strange because the population of America is increasing. What this tells us is that people are renting more than buying, which means that outside investors from Russia, China, Middle East, wherever it may be, are plowing money into the American market, just like they're doing to the European market. London, for example, therefore, the majority of people are renting as opposed to buying, and this only backs up that data. We got inflation rates, and then we have got out of Germany. We got a lot of retail sales this week, but also on Friday we got out of Germany. We got their GDP. That'll be interesting. Germany is the big manufacturer powerhouse in Europe, so we want to pay attention to that. In terms of shares, I just wanted to touch on Nvidia. They are growing and growing. Earnings are good. They are now basically the holders. They are the godfather of the AI industry. It would be useful to keep an eye on, check these guys on a weekly basis, especially if you're involved in stocks. Why? Because people are likely to use them as a baseline read, and just like people look at Bitcoin when they refer to cryptos, or how people look at Facebook or Apple when it comes to the tech sector out of the States. So Nvidia are likely to be the baseline reading for future AI's share prices within the companies. Boeing is mentioned again. The only reason being is we had a turbulent situation with Singapore Airlines. One man died. Now, yes, the Boeing shares have gone down, but this is just general across the board. It's not necessarily it's come at a bad time for Boeing because a lot of people straight away may have thought, oh, this is another Boeing related incident. It's not to be confirmed yet. What we're hearing is that it was turbulence, and now we're hearing people going down the route of it's climate change, it's things like this. Who knows? I'm not a scientist. I don't think traders are necessarily going to sell Boeing shares based off of this news. What they are likely to share Boeing shares is due to the whistleblower news. 3 individuals now who have suddenly passed away. This is what's going to bring down Boeing's price and likely to continue going on. That being said, it couldn't come at a worse time for them. That's your week. Keep an eye on the Iran situation. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. Ongoing to see who they are likely to vote in their 50 days. And in terms of gold, it'll be interesting to see if that starts to calm down over coming days. Until we start seeing some ceasefire talks, either out of Ukraine or Israel or in Gaza, we can't necessarily see gold going down anytime soon in that aspect. I appreciate your time. Thank you, everybody who's attending and watching. I wish you a great rest of the week, and we'll speak soon. Bye bye.